Well, I've studied Neville Goddard's teachings for years, and at this point, I've made hundreds of videos as well as worked with hundreds of clients on applying law of assumption principles that he speaks about, as well as also having edited multiple books that you can find on Amazon, talking about Neville's work and actually basically dissecting Neville's work. And in this video, I want to show you the underlying pattern that is going to make you see why most people fail applying these principles and why it's not really their fault that they fail the majority of the time. And if you understand this, hopefully it will make you feel a lot less shame about not being able to apply law of attraction, law of assumption, manifestation type of concepts. People think the law of assumption is different than the law of attraction. Maybe we'll get a little bit into that in this video, but really they aren't. They're basically the same ideas. And the truth of the matter is most people don't feel fulfilled and quote unquote fail applying the stuff. And the pattern that we see all the time is people basically failing and thinking that they did something wrong. And to sum up what I'm about to talk about, here's the truth. The large majority of the time, if you are serious about applying the ideas that Neville talks about or that other people talk about, you're going to come to a point where you understand what they're talking about. But then you're not going to be able to apply it anymore in the way they say. That's the pattern. I usually speak to at least one or two people a week who are talking to me for the first time. And they say something along the lines of, I've been into these ideas for a long time. Because people don't usually find my stuff unless they've already been into these ideas, okay? So I've been into these ideas for a long time. I've benefited from these ideas. I love Neville, or maybe they're talking about some other teachers they like that we talk about on this channel. But a lot of times, I love Neville. Often I've had, people say I've had some success applying Neville's stuff. But I can't get it to consistently work. I'm doing something wrong. I don't get it. I think I understand the theory, but I can't persist and live in the end. I can't reach that fulfilled state and live in that state continuously in the way Neville talks about, or the way that, he talks about Abdullah living in that state of fulfillment, of the wish fulfilled. I can't do it. What am I doing wrong, Tim? So this is the beginning of the pattern, okay? This is what I see all the time. And then we'll talk about their specific situation, and I'll give them a specific answer for the issue that they're having. And if you're interested in that, link is in the description if you want to have a brief conversation with me, or if you're interested in coaching. But the non-specific answer, the general answer, is actually very straightforward. And this is the part of the video that might blow your mind. The general answer, which encompasses the specific answer, is this. Neville and Abdullah were not very good teachers when it comes to how to actually apply this shit. Now, I don't know about Abdullah, because Abdullah is more of a myth than a man at this point. But the way Neville describes Abdullah, the little that's written about Abdullah, but certainly Neville, oh man, I love Neville. He is so evocative and is using such wonderful language. I was reading Fundamentals the other day because I was talking to a client about Fundamentals, which is a short essay he wrote, I think, in 1952 or 1953. Wonderful essay. You can find it online. We'll put a link in the description for that too. And in Fundamentals, he's talking about detachment. He says he's talking about observing how you are actually behaving, how you react and respond to things, and being detached enough to observe that objectively. He says this is a fundamental aspect of the law of assumption. And he goes, and again, he words this so well. Just read the essay, it's worth reading. He says, what happens when we do this, when we detach and we objectively observe ourselves, we realize that the wonderful person we think we are is actually bullshit a lot of the time. And that we're doing all these things that are unloving, self-critical, critical of others, negative, that we pretend basically we're not doing. But if we're really watching ourselves, watching how we react to things, how we think, we realize we're doing all this behavior that is sinning. And by sinning, I just mean, Neville meant missing the mark. And he goes, you want to have an aim, you want to have a mark that you want to hit. And then you want to observe yourself as to how you're reacting to things. And then you want to hit the mark. You want to change your behavior so you can hit the mark instead of miss. Neville describes it so wonderfully in that essay and elsewhere. Just fantastic. But here's the thing. In that essay and elsewhere, he doesn't really tell you how. That's the kicker. How do I actually live in the end? How do I continuously live from that state of fulfillment? Now, obviously we know all about the techniques. We can do SATs. We can recite things. We can use all these imaginative techniques to try to feel it more. But how do you actually do that consistently? Because for a lot of us, we do SATs once or twice for something and we feel it, but then it's hard to consistently do that. Likewise for any of these techniques. Neville's quoted later in his career saying, I use all these techniques, but they're all figurative just to have you believe and to expect it to happen. But how do you actually expect it to happen? This is the pattern we see. People blame themselves because Neville is so evocative, so persuasive in how he speaks, that we just assume because we understand what he's saying that that's it, that you understand the concept, you can apply it. But the reality is you can understand the concept, the idea he's talking about, how your imagination creates reality, how you want to persist in a state fulfilled until it becomes your external reality. You can understand it 100% completely, conceptually. And you're still not going to know how the fuck to do it a lot of the time. And Neville, like most of these manifestation, law of attraction, law of assumption type of teachers, doesn't really tell you how to do it all that well. That's the paradox and the pattern that we see over and over again. Most, if not all, of these, manifestation teachers are very evocative. And they're laying the groundwork. But, again, I shared this story a couple times recently. A client told me this last year. Great example. It's like they're telling you, you're gonna do a race. You're gonna start at the race. Start at the starting line of the race. And the gun goes off and say, no, now go win the race. And you've got no idea how to win the race. You just start running, but you have no fucking idea how to run, the route, or anything. That's what this manifestation stuff is actually like. So when I say people are failing, that's not me being negative. I'm very optimistic about this stuff. I'm saying people are failing because they have no idea how to even fucking run the race. And you got to figure that out for yourself and pick and choose what actually works for you and use all these integrative tools that we always talk about on this channel to actually make it so you can win the race and actually get something out of these wonderful conceptual ideas. Because the how to actually do it is not there for most of us. Neville's how, Abraham Hicks's how, Dr. Joe Dispenza's how, any teacher's how, Emile Coué, who's probably my favorite teacher when it comes to these ideas, his how, none of their hows are good enough, guys. None of their hows are good enough. They're not honest enough about the stress that's going to come up, the quote unquote resistance that's going to come up that we're going to have to deal with, and how these feelings are going to move through our body, like fear, fucking fear, F-E-A-R, big time, as well as things perhaps like shame, guilt, etc. That stuff's going to have to be integrated. And just, doing SATs is not going to help us do that 99% of the time. Or any technique, affirmations, good luck. Good luck. The reason, by the way, we've discussed this several times, the reason Coué's method works so well in terms of autosuggestion and affirmations is not because of the affirmations. It's because if you were in his presence, he created a hypnotic atmosphere that made you believe. Same with Neville. If you saw him lecture, he was hypnotic in the best sense, in a positive sense, and he got you to believe. But the problem is, what happens when you leave that environment? You go to a Dr. Joe retreat. People tell me it can be hypnotic. Great. What happens when you leave? That's when the big boy, big girl stuff starts. And most people fall off and fail really quickly because you have to personalize it and make it your own. I have found you have to make it somatic usually. You have to be honest with your body, the intelligence of your body, and work with these uncomfortable feelings that come up and realize that those uncomfortable feelings are not you being out of alignment or having a bad frequency, but are actually telling you something. In short, we have to get better usually at accepting who we are right now in order to change. To paraphrase Carl Rogers, the paradox is it's only when I accept myself fully that I'm able to change. Neville, in that wonderful essay, Fundamentals, that's what he was getting at when he talks about detaching and objectively viewing yourself and accepting yourself before you're able to change. The problem is he doesn't usually tell you how to do that. And the pattern I see is people assume that they should know how to do it, when the reality is you shouldn't know how because Neville and all these other wonderful teachers never really tell you how. I hope this makes sense to some of you. If you've been at this stuff long enough, it will make sense. And if you need help, you know where to find me. This is the mature work that's worth doing and what makes these ideas so interesting. But it's no joke. And most of YouTube is a joke when it comes to law of assumption concepts. This video is not that. This video is, more of the truth that we actually have to embody if we want this stuff to feel fulfilling in our lives.